Hello students, welcome back. Myself Pushpender Singh and we are going to start with our NCRT classes. So here we are having basically the NCRT based classes for basically today we have the geography and we are covering basically the subject by subject through this NCRT classes. And we have already covered the sixth standard geography and the history, seventh standard history, and now we are going to finish your seventh standard geography. All right, and today is the second class for your seventh standard geography. All right, so let's begin with the class for your geography. All right, so the chapter is basically our changing earth. All right, so here you must understand, as I told you in my last class, that there is some domains of the earth, right? For example, you have the lithosphere, you have atmosphere, you have biosphere, right? So these domains are basically are important constituents. So you see basically the first domain is basically lithosphere. Lithosphere means the domain which basically consisting of the solid surface, the solid earth surface. Okay, so it is the domain. So you see basically in the lithosphere is basically the solid earth surface, which is basically nothing but a broken down into number of plates. Okay, according to plate tectonics theory. So as you graduate in the higher classes, you will learn that one theory called plate tectonics theory. According to that, the earth surface or earth crust basically top crust basically into broken down into several plates, major plates and the minor plates. So these plates are maybe major and minor. Okay, there are around 7 major plates and there are numerous minor plates. All right, and these plates are called lithospheric plates because they are consisting of the solid surface or the solid rocks of the earth. So they are called basically the lithosphere plates. Okay, now the point is that how different type of the geomorphic features basically formed on the earth, right? Whether it is the mountains, right, plateaus, volcanoes, right? All sort of the geological features, geomorphological features are occur because of the interaction of these plates. So there are the plates which basically continuously interact with themselves. Okay, so there is a movement in these plates, so which basically causes certain changes on the earth. For example, the mountains which we are having, right? The mountains which we are having, right, are due to the I'm talking about especially the fold mountains, right? Are due to convergence of two plate boundaries, the convergence of plate boundaries. Okay, so convergence means you must understand there are two plates which basically converge, right? So there is a convergence boundary. These plates basically move towards each other, like the motion will be like that, and adjoining strata will be folded up, right, in the form of fold mountain, and this is basically called fold mountains, right? This is the one such example. There are many such examples. As you graduate in the higher classes, you will learn. Okay, the forces that are there in the interior of the earth are called endogenetic forces, right? You must understand first of all, these endogenic forces are you know are basically acting in the interior of the earth, right? So they are basically maybe compressional forces. Okay, there may be the tensional forces. Okay, there may be compressional forces, there may be tensile forces. So these forces basically act in the interior of the earth, that they are called basically endogenetic forces, right? And there are certain forces which act on the surface of the earth, they are called exogenic forces, right? Exogenic forces means which are not related to, or which are not within the earth surface, but which are on the surface, right? Which are called exogenic forces. Now these endogenic forces, as I told you, causes earthquakes, because earthquakes are occurring because of these endogenic forces. Volcanic eruptions are also because of these endogenic forces, right? So here you must understand that, let's say this is the plate. Now there is a plate continuously moving. One plate goes and below the another plate, so there is one plate which is moving, so this plate is moving, so there is a continuous interaction between these two plates. This is the plate one, and this is basically plate 2. All right, so now these two plates are basically continuously in the interaction. So these plates basically, after reaching to, let's say, around 400 to 700 kilometers down, started melting up and forming magma. Now this under due to heavy pressure and the temperature, this basically rises up to the surface. Okay, in the form of basically lava, right? And that may have that in a certain portions, these lava may come out on the surface. So such type of endogenic forces are also responsible for the volcanic eruptions also. We will learn more about it as we graduate in our higher classes. Okay. Now, the exogenic forces cause weathering, erosion, deposition, and the gradation. Okay. Let's understand these terms. First of all, as I told you, these forces are work on the surface of the earth. Weathering means, you know, in situ, in situ breakdown, in situ breakdown or disintegration, right? In situ breakdown or disintegration, that means the breakdown or disintegration of, right, uh, certain element within that place itself, right? So it does not involve the movement of that material. So there is no movement of the material, but there is a breakdown of such substances. Erosion means after weathering, right, there is an element of movement, there is an element of movement. So that means there are multiple agents of the erosion. For example, you have the air, you have water, right? So these agents of the erosion basically, remove these weathered material, right, from their location, and they basically transport it to the another location, right? So this process is called basically erosion. Deposition means the eroded materials ultimately got settled somewhere. So there is the deposition of those materials which are eroded by these agents of the erosion. Gradation means there is a profilation of those materials, right? Like coarse, right, somewhat coarser, and then you have the finer one, right? Like that, like you have the sand, silt, and clay, right? So there is a gradation among those materials also. As I given you the definition, weathering means the breaking of the rocks on the earth's crust. That means it is in situ. In situ means wherever it is there. That means there is no element of the movement, right? So that means the breaking down of the rocks, disintegration of the rocks on the earth's surface, wherever the rock it is, right? The erosion means it is a breaking away of the landscape by the different agents of erosion like water, wind, and ice. So breaking away means there is a element of the movement of, right, the weathered materials which are weathered in their place. So the agents of the erosion like water, wind, and ice basically involve in the removing of those weathered material from their surface, right, or from their source, and they will be ultimately deposited somewhere in downstream, right? And then the sudden movements like earthquakes and the volcanoes, as I told you, that they are basically caused because of endogenic forces, right, or endogenic forces which are evolved from the earth's surface or within the earth's surface. Now they are basically causes most destruction over that surface, because you must understand, whenever you have the earthquake, you will have the most destruction because of the intensity and the magnitude of your earthquake, right? So intensity will tell you how much the intense is the earthquake in terms of your destruction, right? The volcanoes are basically, there is a eruption of certain, the lava from the earth's surface, right? So that magma will come out on the surface and ultimately erupted in the form of lava, and that will basically spread all around. So these volcanoes are also, different type of volcanoes like fissure volcanoes, composite volcanoes, right? So we will be learning more about these types of volcanoes, right? Different type of earthquake waves like P wave, S wave, right, L waves. We'll learning all such things in the higher classes as we graduate in the higher classes. All right. Then, as I given you the definition of the volcano is a vent. Vent means it is an opening in the earth crust, right, where there is an opening, right? Through that opening there is a space, right? And from the space the molten material will come out. Okay, the molten material will come out. So it is I'm calling this is a vent. This is a vent. Through this there is, chamber, magma chamber. Okay, so it is a magma chamber. From this magma chamber the volcanic material will come out as a lava, right, from the earth's surface. So here you have the magma or magmatic chamber. Okay, the vibration in the plates of the earth are called earthquakes. So these earthquakes that we are referring, basically that earthquakes may be because of many reasons, right? There may be regions like the natural regions, like the movement of these plates, okay, or interaction among these plates. So these plates can be interacted, right? The reasons for this volcano, reasons for this earthquakes, the plates can be interacted through various ways. For example, there may be convergent plate boundaries, right? So here you will have the convergent plate boundary. So one plate on second plate basically moving towards each other. There may be, divergent plate boundary. So these two plates are basically moving away from each other. So there is a divergence. There may be, the, the, they are moving just past away from each other, right? So there is no such convergence in the divergence. So such boundary can also be formed. And such interaction basically led to the vibration in the plates of the earth, and which is basically caused the earthquake, right? The plate in the earth crust where the movement start is called basically focus, right? And the focus, you can say, for example, this is your, let's say this is your earth surface, okay? I'm just making, right? And let's say here you must understand where the energy released, so it is called focus, where the energy is released. And it is the nearest point on the earth surface where this energy reaches first, right? So place on the earth surface is called focus, is above the focus is called epicenter. So it is called basically epicenter. Epicenter is basically a place where the earthquake waves reaches to earth surface very fast. That means it can be lies just above the focus, right, where these waves reaches to the surface of the earth, and it is called basically the epicenter of your earthquake. And focus is the place where the you know the energy waves basically released. All right. And as I told you that earthquake you can measure by the seismograph. So seismograph is basically instrument which measure, the earthquake and intensity of the earthquake you can measure by Richter scale. Okay. And the earthquakes cannot be predicted, you cannot accurately predict it, but we can certainly impact or minimize that impact which is basically caused by the earthquakes. So that minimization of those impact will be done, okay, through certain techniques, right? That may have, the, for example, we can use certain codes related to buildings, right, which may basically in the form of earthquake resistance buildings, right? So which will be in the form of, various codes, various provisions in terms of making the structures, right, in such a way that it is seismic proof, or they are seismic proof, so that the loss to the man and materials will be minimized in this process of earthquakes. Okay, let's understand the major landforms. So as I told you, the major landforms are basically, these are the landscapes which are continuously borne away by the forces. Okay, now major landforms which are formed, right, because of this continuously bearing down, these forces are called basically weathering, right? So there may be, there, for example, there is a fold mountain called Aravali. Okay, Aravali in Rajasthan. Okay, now what happens is this Aravali, right, is basically bear down, or the weathering was done by the agents of the erosion, say wind, and which is led down to now this relic type of mountain, which means now the the mighty mountain have been weathered away, right? And this continuous process of weathering and the erosion has led to the formation of different landscapes on the earth surface. Okay, and again the definition, weathering is basically in situ breaking down of the rocks on the earth surface. Okay, and erosion is basically the wearing down of the landscape by the different agents of the water. You may have the water, wind, and ice, right? So where you will have the element of the movement of those, of those, the weathered material by these agents of the erosion, and this whole process is called basically erosion. Okay, let's understand the work of the river, right? Different type of work which is performed by the river. Okay, the river basically perform different type of work. For example, when a river tumbles at the steep angle over the hard rocks. Okay, for example, this is the hard rock. Okay, and when the river basically tumbled over this hard surface, right, what it caused? It caused waterfall, right? And this angle should be steep. So this is a steep angle where the river basically flows down, right, over the hard surface. So all along the down the steep valley side, it formed basically a waterfall. It formed the waterfall. And as the rivers basically enters the plain, right, it basically twists and the turns and forming large bends, that is called meanders. That means you must understand, for example, this is basically your hill. This is basically your hill. Let's say the river basically flows through the hill. Now it is, since it is flowing, so it is basically with the very high speed. Now it is basically your plain, so it is basically planar area. Okay, so as it reaches to the planar area, this river, okay, let's understand this is the river. So what happens is, due to this less steepness, what happens is the rivers basically turned into small bends. Okay, so there may be bends, and these bends are known as meander. So that means the river will basically become meandering river, so it is basically called meander. It is basically called meander. So river meandering occur due to less steepness and due to the shallowness of the water, where you won't have the enough water and you will have lot of sediments also deposited, right? These sediments would settle down over the period of the time, and basically, because of less flow, because of deposition, right, because of sedimentation, all such process has led to the meandering of the rocks, right? Right. Along with the less steepness of the slope, right? So here you must understand, sometime what happens is, if I make this the meandering loop of the river, let's say this is the loop. Now what happens is, sometime that may happen that this the side of the basically sometime this river started flowing in such a way that it basically cut out, or this portion is basically cut out from the river because of deposition of the the sediments. Now what will happen, this basically formed the Oxbow Lake. So that may happen that the meandering loop cuts off from the river. Okay, so when the meandering loop basically cuts off from the river, right, this is called basically Oxbow Lake. So over the period of the time, due to the inner side deposition those the sediments by the river, right, and because of the shallowness of the water, because of less availability of the water, right, the water carrying capacity of the water is also of the river is also reduces, and ultimately what happens is, river basically changes its course slightly, and it bypass that segment of the river where it flows, right, to some portion back, but started flowing straightly instead of passing that portion, and that left out portion is basically converted into Oxbow Lake. All right. Now, during flooding, what happens is, river deposits lot of layer of the fine soils that we call basically in terms of your sediments. So fine soils will be deposited. Other materials will be deposited along the bank. Okay. Now this leads to the formation of the entire flat fertile plain, which is called flood plains, right? For example, you might have heard about that there are the flood plains, right? Whatever we are having, for example, this river used to flow, right, once upon a time to cover this much area, but now this river is flowing only this area, right? So now this area, but this complete area is also considered as a flood plain of this river, because once upon a time this river would have been flowed through this area, or would have covered. So the fine soil, the sediments would have deposited by this river, and which lead to formation of this entire floodplain, right? uh, and there may be possibility that these banks are have been raised over the period of the time. So these raised bank are called basically levees. So here the banks will be raised, right? Here it is called basically levees, and they are basically deposition of the older sediments which have been deposited over longer period of the time, right? And these rivers basically, when it's basically meet with the water body, let's say ocean, right, these river basically shed its sediments in the form of delta. So here the sediments will be ultimately collected at the mouth. So that means, let's say this river is basically flowing this way and moving ultimately and forming the delta over here. So it is called delta. Okay, so here you will have the mouth. So it is called basically mouth means it is the place where the river basically meets with a water body or the ocean, right? And it is basically called source is the place where basically river originate, right? So source is the place where river originate, and mouth is the place basically generally when the river basically meets with the water body or the shallow water, right, like ocean, right, where it basically forms the delta, right? Okay, now let's understand the work of the sea waves. Okay, so the work of the sea waves also to be understood in the form of your erosion and the deposition. So here you must understand that erosion and the deposition are the two process which has led to certain set of landforms which are formed basically the coastal areas. Okay, or these landforms are called coastal landforms because of this erosion and deposition of these sea waves. Okay, now due to these sea waves, sea waves also have certain set of suspended particles. These suspended sediments or the particles continuously they rotate, right, and they basically continuously impact, the coastal, landforms, or the coastal, basically the topographic features, right? Because of this continuous impact of these, these sea waves, right, what will happen? Hollow caves are formed, right, on the rocks which are lying adjacent to the sea. Now these hollow caves, right, which are called basically sea caves, right, what will happen, right? These sea caves generally formed because of continuous hitting of the water wave, which basically consisting of lot of, suspended angular particles, which basically, erode lot of material, and basically in the form of sea caves is formed. The cavities become bigger in the size, only the roof of the cave remains, right, thus forming sea arches. Okay, so here you must understand that, these cavities, right, when they grow or when they become bigger, right, what will happen? The cave, only the roof of the caves thus remaining, and which is formed in the form of arches, right? So here you can see that for example, this is basically a topographical feature. Okay, let's say a river basically, or a river basically, or the seaway basically flowing this way, and it is continuously hitting. Okay, so it is basically, taking out this water, taking out this area. So it is basically continuously hitting here, and ultimately reaches up to here. So what will happen? It will make a shallow area. It will make the whole area shallow. And for example, if I cut this, and if I saw this one, it will be looks like this. So it will looks like this. The sea waves basically flows through it, and you can see it is basically a sea arch. It is basically in the form of sea arch, which will be formed in the topographical feature. Okay, and this erosion basically further breaks this roof, and only walls are left. It is called stack. So what will happen over the period of the time? This roof itself will be broken down, right? And ultimately, what will happen? Only these two stacks will be left out. So one stack and two stack. Okay, because this roof will be also gone, right? This roof will also gone because of this continuous pressure. Now only the stack will be left out, and this is called basically stack. So only walls will be left out, which are in the form of stack. This steepy rocky coast rising almost vertically above the seawater is called sea cliff. Okay, so any sort of, the cliff which are in the form of steep rocky coast, which is basically rising almost vertically. Whenever we call that cliff, means it is something which is rising vertically, right? Which is having, the, the high gradient, which is basically rising vertically above the seawater in the form of cliff. Okay, let's understand the work of ice. The work of ice, first of all, in the form of glaciers. So glaciers are also one of the important agent of the erosion. Okay, so they also erode, landscape. So how they erode? They basically bulldoze the soil, right, and the stones to expose the soil rocks which are lying below. For example, there is a movement of the glacier. Let's say this is the movement of the glacier, and glacier basically moves. So what will happen? The glaciers also consisting of lot of sediments, along with that angular sediments. So they also erode, right? So as the movement of the glaciers occur, they also erode this, lot of soils and the stones, and which basically expose the soil which is basically lying below. Okay, and the material which is basically carried by the glaciers, such as big and the small rocks, right, the sand and the silt get ultimately deposited, and these deposits form the glacial moraines, which are basically in the form of the sand and the silt deposition, right, which are ultimately carried by the glaciers, which are ultimately deposited. All right, let's understand the work of the winds. Okay, these many much more landforms will be there. More landform we will be learning as we graduate in our higher classes. All right, as I told you that wind is also active agent of the erosion, so it will also, erode the material, right, and deposit it somewhere. So this process is very active in the desert. You might have seen in the desert there is no such, barrier for the wind. The wind can continuously flow, right, for one place to the another place. So what will happen? It will erode the sediment somewhere, right? It will be depositing somewhere, right? So it is basically, makes the rocks in the shape of mushroom, and it is called mushroom rocks. So these are basically because of, you know the rocks which are formed due to the shape of the mushroom, due to this erosion work of the wind, they are called basically mushroom rocks. Okay, and when these winds basically stops blowing or stops flowing, right, the sand which are basically carried out by this, which were previously carried out by those winds, ultimately started depositing some point of the time, right? and these deposited wind form in the form of low hill like structure, right? And these low hill like structure are called basically sand dunes. These sand dunes you might have seen in the movies, right? Or in the Rajasthan desert area where you will have the sand dunes. And these sand dunes are basically, are very much there in the desert regions. Okay, when the grains of the sand is very fine and the light, the wind can carry it over the longer distance, because you must understand, lighter the grain or lighter the grain of the sand, okay, it can carry over the longer distance, okay, and it can basically ultimately the it will be deposited in the larger area. And this finer sand or lighter sand is called basically loess. The loess, which is also mostly found in the basically in the desert area on the semi-arid and arid region. Okay, so here the ultimate is basically the earth movement. As I told you, it is basically endogenic and exogenic. So you see basically the earthquakes, volcano, landslides, building mountains, they are all due to the endogenic forces. Exogenic forces, the rivers, sea, the waves, glaciers are basically, some of those forces which basically cause the evolution of certain landforms. Okay, let's understand the air. Okay, so it is basically, our atmosphere is surrounded by the huge blanket of the air. This blanket of the air will have, for example, 78% of your nitrogen, around 21% of your oxygen, and remaining other gases will be there. Okay, so there is a huge blanket of the gases. Okay, so here the nitrogen and the oxygen are the two important gases which make up the bulk of the atmosphere. You see basically here it make up the bulk of the atmosphere. And right, the carbon dioxide, helium, ozone, argon, hydrogen are found basically in the lesser quantities, right? They are found in the lesser quantities over there, right? And there may be also, some of the tiny dust particles which are also present in the air, right? These dust particles are also as a part of, the composition of your atmosphere. Apart from that, you may also have the water vapor also. So apart from water vapor, gases, right? The inert gases, right, and tiny dust particles will ultimately form your atmosphere. Okay, let's understand the structure of the atmosphere. So first of all, the structure of the atmosphere is divided into the 5 layers. Okay, 5 layers. So just like a normal structure, for example, this is your structure of the atmosphere. If you take the vertical, the first layer is called basically your troposphere. Okay, the troposphere. So here the 5 layers will be there. The first layer is basically called troposphere, whose average height is around 13 kilometer. Okay, so it is higher in the basically in the equatorial region, but is comparatively lower basically in the polar region, because you must understand the wind basically, the convection winds basically, you know you know lift up to the higher, to the higher reaches or to the higher height, right, especially in the equatorial region, right? But in the polar regions, what will happen, right, due to the subsidence of the air, right, the average height of the troposphere is much lesser. Okay, so here the troposphere is the most important layer where all weathering phenomena occur. Okay, so I said where all mostly weathering phenomena occur, like all your clouds, right, the weather formation, right, the changes in the weather, right, rainfall, the snowfall, everything, right, everything happens in this, weathering related phenomena occur on this, in this layer, right? And it is the layer where we breathe, right? The second layer basically we call stratosphere. It is called stratosphere. The stratosphere extend up to 50 kilometers, right, from the earth's surface. You see its height up to 50 kilometers. Okay, the stratosphere is the layer where you will have, basically All right. So as I told you that almost, first layer is troposphere, second layer is basically your stratosphere, okay, which extend up to 50 kilometers. And one more important feature that I want to highlight here, that ozone layer basically lies in this stratosphere. The ozone layer is basically the life-saving layer where you will have the ozone, right? Where it can basically, intercept the ultraviolet radiations from reaching the Earth's surface, and it will be basically, helpful for the adverse effects on the humans especially, right? So it is a life-saving layer which is basically the stratosphere, right? And the third layer is basically mesosphere, right? It extends up to the height of 80 kilometers. All right. And the fourth layer is basically called thermosphere, right? It is a rarefied layer. It extends from 80 kilometers to 400 kilometers. And the uppermost layer of the atmosphere is basically exosphere, and it has very, very thin layer. It is very, very thin layer. The more details about these layers basically we will learn in our higher classes as we proceed in our higher classes. All right. Next, weather and the climate. Let's understand the weather. So weather is basically day-to-day change, day-to-day change in the conditions of the atmosphere. So the weather basically may change hour to hour, they may change day to day, they may change even within hour also, right? So it's a day-to-day changes, right? So that day-to-day changes is changes in the conditions of the atmosphere is basically in the form of weather, in the form of weather, right? But when climate means the average weather conditions for the larger period of the time. This larger period may be 30 years, maybe 40 years, okay? So we basically take this average in terms of the average weather conditions for a particular area or over the larger area for the larger period of the time, that may be 30 years to 40 years. So weather is basically, a day-to-day changes, but climate is not something day-to-day change, but it is basically the average change in the weathering condition for the larger period of the time, right, over the larger area. All right, let's understand the temperature. So temperature means it is the degree of hotness, right? Kitna garam hai, so it is a degree of hotness. The degree of hotness will be measured in the form of temperature. The degree of coolness, kitna thanda hai, that will be also measured in the form of temperature. So we'll measure the temperature of that particular, the substance in the form of, in the form of say degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit or whatever maybe, right? So this is basically called the temperature. The temperature of the atmosphere changes, right? So not only you might have heard, you might have also experienced that the temperature changes between day and night. Daytime you may have the higher temperature, nighttime you may have the lesser temperature. The temperature also changes from season to season. You may have, the say winter season, you may have, the summer season, right? So like that the temperature also changes. So that it is an important factor which basically influence the distribution of the temperature is insolation. Insolation means that the word basically we use insolation is basically the incoming solar radiation. Incoming solar radiation, okay? So these incoming solar radiations are those radiations which are coming directly from the sun. So the most important factor which basically influence the distribution of the temperature is basically your insolation. And the insolation is basically the incoming solar energy which is basically intercepted by the earth, okay? So this insolation, basically the energy which is intercepted, the interception of the earth by causing because of your atmosphere. So what will happen? The atmosphere basically, sorry, the earth's surface basically, uh, hold this energy or hold this basically heat, and then this heat basically relieved during the night in the form of terrestrial radiation. In the form of terrestrial radiation. Terrestrial radiation means the radiation which is basically erupted from the earth's surface during the night time, right? Because earth has to be cooled down, right? So in the process the earth basically released certain radiation that is called terrestrial radiation, okay? So in that process earth also cools down, but certainly these insolation are basically intercepted by the earth's surface, right? Because they are basically, you know the short wave radiations, right? And the amount of insolation decreases from equator towards the poles, because you must understand, right? Because the sun never crosses tropic of Cancer and tropic of Capricorn. So here what will happen is, as the sun never crosses that region, so what will happen, the sun rays always never falls vertically, especially in the polar regions. And when the sun is at tropic of Capricorn, obviously the north pole will have completely darkness. When the sun is basically tropic of Cancer, the south pole will have complete darkness. And moreover, whenever the sun is moving toward the southern hemisphere, right, obviously the northern poles in the northern hemisphere will have the not vertical ray but slanting rays, right, slanting rays. So that may cause the lowering of the temperature in the northern hemisphere. The same thing will happen when the sun moves towards the northern hemisphere. The sun rays basically falls not vertically on the southern hemisphere, but the slanting rays basically formed, and which is led to the decrease in the temperature in the southern hemisphere and ultimately increase in the temperature in the northern hemisphere, right? So this process basically occurred in our, you know uh, in our movement of, the apparent movement of the sun. All right. And temperature is measured in terms of Celsius, in terms of degree Celsius, in terms of Fahrenheit also. All right. Let's understand air pressure. So air pressure means, air pressure is defined by the pressure which is exerted by the weight of air on the earth face. So here you must understand the pressure is always defined by weight per unit area. Okay, so it's basically kg per meter square. So here, the per unit earth surface, the weight is weight of the air which is exerted by, right, all right. So as I said you, air pressure means the pressure exerted by the weight of the air, right, on the earth's surface. So it is called air pressure. So as I told you, air pressure is basically defined by the pressure exerted by the weight of the air on the earth's surface. So it is basically all right. So as I told you that air pressure is basically defined as pressure exerted by the weight of the air on the earth's surface. All right. So it is basically a weight of a column of the air which is exerted on the earth's surface. Okay. And horizontally there is also a variation in the air pressure which is influenced by the temperature. The temperature, how it's related? For example, if there is a high temperature, if there is a high temperature, there will be low pressure. There will be low pressure. If there is low temperature, there will be high pressure. There will be high pressure. So it is inverted relationship will be there, right? At a given temperature of the air basically define the distribution of the air pressure also. Okay, the areas having the low temperature, the air is basically cold, right? As I told you, low temperature means the air will be cold, and this low temperature also leads to the high pressure. Okay, because there will be a subsidence of the air. The air always moves from the high pressure to the low pressure area. So for example, if there is a high pressure area and it is a low pressure area, the air will always blow from this high pressure towards the low pressure. It will never blow from low pressure to the high pressure, but it will always blow from high pressure to the low pressure area. All right, let's understand the wind. Okay, The wind, as I told you, that air basically blows from high pressure to the low pressure. So this movement of the air from high pressure area to the low pressure area is called in the form of wind, or it is called basically wind. So the movement of this air from high pressure to the low pressure is called wind. And the winds are basically broadly divided into three types. They are divided into three types. The one is called permanent winds, the second is called basically seasonal winds, and the third is called basically local winds. So permanent, seasonal, and the local winds. So you see basically the permanent winds are basically called the trade winds, which basically flows. For example, you may have basically the northeastern trade winds, the southeastern trade winds, right? They will basically continuously flows. Okay. Then you have the some of the seasonal winds, which basically flows only seasonally, right? Then we have local winds, which basically, in the local landscape they basically flows. All right. And there are cyclonic winds also. These cyclonic winds are originated as a depression which affected Orissa and killing thousands of the people. So these cyclones also occur, right, especially in our coastal belt of India, and which basically kill a lot of people, right? So there will be a loss of men and the materials, especially during the cyclonic winds, which are nothing but the low pressure systems. So these cyclonic winds are basically the low pressure systems which affect the thousands of the people in the area. Then moisture, right? So moisture means when the water is evaporate, right? So what will happen because of the intense heat, right? What will happen? The water basically evaporate from land, right? And this evaporation occurs, and the water bodies basically, from the water bodies, and it converted into water vapor. So vapor means it is basically in the vapor form, right? So the water basically converted into the vapor. And the moisture in the air at any time is known as humidity. Okay. So humidity will measure in terms of how much the air is basically moist at a given point of the time. Okay. And when the water vapor rises, for example, let's say this diagram. So this is the water body, and let's say the water vapor basically rising up. This is the water vapor. So as it moved, right, it started cooling down. It started cooling down, right? So there is a process called cooling. There is a process called cooling as it move up, right? And this water vapor ultimately condense. So what will happen at this point of the time when it reaches to the sufficient height, right? It basically completely saturated. So 100% saturation occur. 100% saturation. That means it cannot hold more moisture, and it has sufficiently cooled down also, right? So at that point of the time, the water vapor condenses, and this condensation has led to again the formation of droplets. The formation of the droplets after condensation. And these droplets ultimately, through the process called coalescence, basically grows enough and ultimately falls down on the earth's surface as a waterfall, or as a simple raindrops in the form of droplets of the water, right? Just we feel basically during the rainy season. So they are basically in the form of those water droplets, which are in the form of in the time of rainfall. And these droplets of the water, as I told you, right, they should be heavy enough to fall down, right, in the impact of the gravity, right? So otherwise they will be floating in the air, and they will be they will be coming out to the surface as in the form of precipitation, right? And precipitation is the falling of the moisture in the form of rainfall, right? Precipitation can be of any form. Rainfall means you might have heard, you might have seen also the water droplets. Snow in the form of snowfall, in the form of fog, also in the form of sleet, in the form of hailstorms. So there are different forms of the precipitation. So these water vapor can be condensed into this form, and they can ultimately form, right? So on the basis of this mechanism, there are three types of rainfall: the convectional rainfall, the orographic rainfall, and the cyclonic rainfall. Convectional rainfall का मतलब होता है जैसे if there is any water body, okay, there is a intense heating of these water body, and there is a movement of these the convectional basically uh, conventional air from these water bodies. And these convectional air basically ultimately cools down, and after that it will basically condense and it fall down in the form of rainfall. So it is called convectional rainfall, and it is basically due to the intense heating at the one particular place. Orographic means there is some barrier. For example, this is a hill. For example, you take the Western Ghats. Okay. You must understand there is a southwest monsoon. Okay, these southwestern monsoonal winds basically, impact on the western side of Western Ghats. So what will happen? This side basically due to this barrier, right? This rain-bearing winds cannot move further because of this hill. So it will basically move up along this hill, and ultimately the same process occur. So it will basically cool down. It will basically cool down. It will condense, and it will basically rainfall. It causes rainfall. So the western side of the Western Ghats is basically more rainier, and it is more wet because of this orographic rainfall. Cyclonic rainfall occurs because of these cyclonic storms that we have the separate mechanism because it is the low pressure systems. We will be learning more about the cyclones in the higher classes. Okay, and as you know, the rainfall is very important for the survival of the plants and the animals, right? All right. So thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you. We'll meet again tomorrow for our next session. Thank you very much.